They sold my land. My family's land. For $25,000, and I didn't even know it. I wasn't part of the HOA, never agreed to join, never signed a single thing, but they put a lien on my ranch and sold it right out from under me like it was a used lawn mower at a garage sale. I was standing in the middle of Tractor Supply, picking up feed for my goats, when my phone buzzed with a text from my neighbor, Alan. It just said, "Hey, saw a sold sign on your gate. You moving? Thought you weren't selling." I dropped the bag of feed right there on the concrete. My stomach turned cold. That gate, the one with our family name, Dunleavy, carved into the cedar plank by my granddad himself, was now marked sold. I raced home down the dusty road, past those same oak trees I used to climb as a girl. When I got to the property, I didn't even pull in right. I skidded to a stop sideways, flung the door open, and sprinted to the gate. Sure enough, a big white sign flapped in the breeze, bright red letters, sold. The gate was padlocked. From the outside, I called the county assessor's office right there, hands shaking. The clerk on the phone said, "Ma'am, that property was foreclosed due to a lien from Pine Ridge Homeowners Association. Sold last Friday at public auction." "I'm not in the damn HOA," I screamed into the phone. Silence. Then she said, "According to our records, you are. There's a file listing unpaid dues and fines totaling $2,920. Everything was processed legally." I couldn't breathe. This land, 12 acres of Texas brush, barn, sycamore trees, and a house my grandpa built with his bare hands, had been in our family since 1961, passed down to me in their will. And now, just gone. That's when she showed up. Cynthia, the HOA president. White SUV, pearls on a Tuesday, sunglasses big enough to land planes on. She parked next door like she owned the whole block, stepped out in heels onto gravel like she was on a runway. Then she walked right up to the fence, smiled like she rehearsed it, raised her phone, took a picture of me, and said, "You're trespassing now, sweetie. New owners close Monday." Let me back up. My name's Harper Dunleavy, 34 years old. No husband, no kids. Just me, 2 goats named Frank and Beans, an old dog named Whiskey, and a rusty blue pickup truck that's been with me longer than any boyfriend. I inherited the Dunleavy Ranch 2 years ago after Grandma passed, a quiet place on the edge of town where folks kept to themselves. And that was the plan. Stay quiet. Work the land. Mind my own business. That all changed when Cynthia moved in last year. She bought one of the fancy new houses across the creek, part of a subdivision called Whispering Pines. I thought we were on opposite sides of the county line. Turns out, I was wrong. Or rather, they made it look like I was wrong. It started with letters. Neat little notes left in my mailbox. "Dear resident, in order to maintain community standards," asking me to mow the grass, move my feed bins, hide my goats. I ignored them. I wasn't part of their community. A month later, the notes turned into warnings. Then came the knock. Cynthia, high heels clicking, shiny SUV parked like a billboard for smugness. She smiled, said, "Miss Dunleavy, we noticed a few violations. Here's our community handbook." I told her straight, "This ranch isn't part of your HOA. Never has been." Her smile tightened like a noose. "Oh, sometimes deeds get missed. Developers make clerical errors. But your property is listed in our registry." I took that handbook out of politeness, tossed it into the burn barrel that night. Figured it was done. It wasn't. Turns out those letters weren't just annoying, they were legal. Certified mail. Notices of hearings I never attended. Fines I never read. Cynthia was setting the trap, and I was too busy fixing fences and baking peach cobbler for my elderly neighbor, Mr. Tobias, to notice. He warned me too, come to think of it. Told me Cynthia had asked him odd questions about my property line. He didn't like her. Said she had developer energy. I laughed it off. Until that eviction notice came from the sheriff. "You have 72 hours to vacate," he said, handing me the paper while trying not to make eye contact. "I'm just doing my job." I went numb. I sat on Mr. Tobias' porch, glass of sweet tea shaking in my hand. He said, "You gotta find your grandparents' deed, Harper. Anything proving you're not in their jurisdiction." I remembered my grandma didn't trust banks. She once hid her jewelry inside an old coffee can in the pantry. So I tore the house apart, checked every tin, under every board, behind every photo. Then I remembered something Grandpa once told me while fixing the old stove. "If you ever need to prove something, check behind this sucker." So I did. I moved the stove, scraped the wall, found a tiny screw. a hidden compartment. Inside, a metal box. And inside that, a handwritten deed, notarized, from 1961. It read, "This land shall remain exempt from subdivision governance or HOA jurisdiction not in existence at time of transfer." I nearly passed out. This was it. I called every number I could. A legal aid center connected me with a young lawyer named Jonah. He looked at the deed and said, "This changes everything. That lien should never have been allowed." He dug into the HOA records and found it. A forged attendance sheet saying I had attended a meeting and didn't object to the annexation. I had never even been in their clubhouse. Jonah filed for an emergency injunction. We served Cynthia the next morning. She was already on my land, walking with a clipboard. When I handed her the court order, she smiled and said, "Still playing cowboy, Harper? You're wasting your time." But this time, I wasn't backing down. That afternoon, I got another letter, this time from her lawyer. A defamation suit. $75,000. She claimed I harassed her, scared her tenants, damaged her reputation. She was trying to bury me. Jonah said, "This could work in our favor. It shows intent to intimidate." We filed a counterclaim and subpoenaed everything. Board emails, meeting minutes, zoning maps. Then the cracks began to show. Cynthia had worked with a title officer named Greg. Turns out, they had flipped land together before. Their emails were smug. One said, "She'll never read the fine print. Just make it official." We got a restraining order on further development. But while we fought in court, she played dirty on the ground. Mailbox blocked. Water line mysteriously cut. My shed trashed. My goats frightened. But neighbors started talking. Carol, a widow from across the street, brought me a survey map showing my land wasn't part of the HOA. Mark, a former board member, admitted Cynthia bullied him into silence. We were building a case. Court day came. Cynthia arrived in a red blazer, 3 lawyers in tow. But she didn't smile when Jonah stood up and said, "This is not just about land. It's about fraud, harassment, and the illegal seizure of legacy." He showed the forged docs, the boundary map edits, the old deed from 1961. I testified, told the judge, "This isn't just land. It's my family's story. You can't let someone rewrite it because they have money and lawyers." 2 days later, the ruling came. The judge overturned the sale, nullified the lien, and launched a fraud investigation into Cynthia and Greg. I cried. I laughed. I called Jonah and said, "We did it." But just when I thought it was over, the feds showed up. Black SUVs. Windbreakers with Federal Land Commission stitched in gold. One of them flashed a badge and said, "Miss Dunleavy, we believe your property is part of a larger investigation into HOA-based land scams across the state." Cynthia wasn't just after me. She'd done this before. Many times. They asked for my testimony, my documents, my emails. I gave them everything. Weeks passed. Cynthia was arrested. Greg too. Charges: conspiracy, forgery, racketeering. I replaced her HOA sign with my granddad's old cedar board. Dunleavy Ranch, 1961. I thought I could breathe. But then Jonah called. The developer Cynthia had partnered with Maplewood Estates LLC, suing me for $180,000 in lost investments. They claimed breach of contract. Said Cynthia guaranteed them rights to build a pool and welcome center on my land. My land. We countersued. Trespass. Property damage. Emotional harm. We found the whistleblower email from the clerk proving the zoning map was altered. Final trial. 3 slick lawyers from Maplewood showed up. But Jonah laid it all bare. Forged documents, falsified boundaries, developer collusion. When I took the stand, I looked right at them and said, "You wanted to build a pool where my family built their lives. Not today. Not ever." The judge ruled in our favor. Dismissed their case with prejudice. Awarded me $95,000 in damages. Issued a permanent easement protecting my land from future HOA claims. A month later, we threw a bonfire. Carol brought her famous peach cobbler. Mr. Tobias played harmonica. Even Jonah showed up in cowboy boots, city boy grin and all. We stood around the fire under the stars, and I knew one thing for sure. They thought I was just a quiet woman on a forgotten ranch. They thought I'd given. But I stood my ground. And I won. Now let me ask you, have you ever been pushed by people in power? Had your home, your history, your dignity questioned by someone in heels and a clipboard? Tell me where you're watching from. Share your story. Let's make sure people like Cynthia never win again.